Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Salesforce Curious. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through my interview experience with Accenture. From the application process to the final step, I'll share what to expect and tips that help me along the way. Let's get into it. But before we dive into today's topic, if you are new here or enjoying the content I make, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out any of my future videos. Now let's jump into my interview experience. So there will be HR screening round, which is very first round, and then goes technical round. If your technical round goes very well, then there won't be any second technical round ideally, but in some cases there will be technical rounds as well. Then comes techno-managerial round, and then your background verification, and then you get your job offer letter. First is HR round. So HR will generally call you over the phone and they will ask you very basic question. In first phase, HR will ask about your basic background, like your full name, the course and college from where you graduated, where you are currently living, what's your work location, what's your total IT experience, and have you given an interview within 6 months because there is some freezing period for that, and your relevant experience in Salesforce, and are you looking for a job change? If you answer yes, then they will brief about the requirement for which they are reaching out to you. And in my case, they found my profile from Naukri.com. So she told me that she found my profile from this portal and she's interested for this particular role. So if I'm interested, then she can move ahead. Then comes the second phase of HR on, where she will ask to rate yourself in the requirement technology, like if they are looking for CPQ or a Salesforce developer or a Salesforce admin, then they will ask that particular domain question, like rate yourself into CPQ or rate yourself in Apex, LWC, and how many certification do you have. So in my case, at that point of time, I was having only one certification because I was having 1 year of experience that point of time. So yeah, and then she asked a bit tricky question because uh, these questions are to judge your thought process. So this question can be the reason why you're leaving current company. So in my case, what I answered was in the 1 year experience I have spent in my current company, I have gained valuable experience and developed foundational skills in Salesforce ecosystem. However, I feel that I have reached a point where I need more opportunities to grow and take on a new challenges. I'm excited to broaden my skills, especially in areas like Salesforce development role that include LWC and integration. And I believe that your company offers a great environment where I can continue my learning and contribute to your project team as well. I'm really looking forward for this role that will allow me to grow professionally and make a meaningful impact, which is why I'm very interested in this opportunity. Then next, what she has asked me was my salary expectations. So this is also one tricky question which you should be answering in a logical manner because see, this is very first round and you will be getting another chance to negotiate it. Okay, so if everything goes well, she will feed your data into database and ask your PAN number, maybe. Then she will proceed to schedule your technical round. So when I had given my technical round, so the interviewer started from very basic and then came into advanced level, and there were coding questions as well. I'll explain all that. So in basic technical round, they asked me about relationship in Salesforce. So what I answered was relationship in Salesforce are of various type, like lookup relationship, master details, self relationship, external relationship. So lookup, we use lookup relationship when objects are only related in some cases, whereas master detail relationship, where the detail object doesn't work as a standalone. And Lookup relationship is loosely coupled, whereas master detail is tightly coupled. And whenever a parent record gets deleted, then the child will automatically get deleted in master detail relationship, and that's not the case in the lookup. And so this is also called as cascade delete. So that's not in the case in lookup relationship. And we can have 40 lookup relationship on an object, and we can have two master detail relationship on an object. Also, there can be roll-up summary field on parent object in master detail, but there are no roll-up summary field available in case of lookup relationship. Then self relationship, when an object has a lookup with itself, like there is a manager field on the user object, so that's kind of self relationship. Then comes to external relationship. Then he asked me about reports and dashboard. So what I had explained was report is a list of record that meets certain criteria we define, and there are four type of reports like tabular, summary, matrix, and joint. And dashboard is that shows data from reports as a component, charts, and table. So yeah. And they asked me about record type and page layout, approval processes. So approval process, what I answered was an approval process automate how Salesforce record are approved in org. An approval process also specifies the action that need to take when a record is approved or rejected or recalled on the first submission for the approval process. So the he asked me about flows and its type. So flows is nothing but an automation tool which you build to accomplish some business requirement. And type of flow can be screen flow, auto launched flow, trigger flow, scheduled flow, platform event trigger flow, record trigger orchestration flow. So these many types of flows available. Then he asked me about custom setting and custom metadata. So what I answered was custom setting is similar to custom object. Here, developer can create custom set of data that associate the custom data for an organization, profile, or user. Whereas custom metadata is similar to custom setting, except that this can be deployable and we can create separate validation rule, page layout, lookup to another custom metadata. Then he asked me about junction object. So junction object we use to establish many-to-many relationship. Then he asked me about return type of SOSL, SQL queries. Then he asked me about the dynamic dashboard. So dynamic dashboard nothing but it enables user to see the data that they have access to. Then he asked me scenario based question like suppose there are two profile, one for China employee and one for American employee. Then there is a pick list field and we have requirement to show only three options of pick list to China user who have China employee profile, and we have to show five option to American user, American profile users. So how I will achieve this requirement? Then he asked me about actions in workflow, parent to child query, and then child to parent query. Now, whether you have experience in Aura or LWC, you can answer in that manner. Then he asked me about OWT based scenario question, like if suppose at profile level he have user have access to access, read or write on a particular object, but at OWD setting it's private, and in role hierarchy user have access to that. Then what are the records he will be able to see for a particular object? Or likewise, I'll discuss these OWD scenarios in detail in next video. So he asked me about deployment tool I used in my project, all the tools that I use in deployment. Then he asked me question about asynchronous apex, like what's asynchronous apex, why we use them, their significance, and questions based on the asynchronous apex scenarios, like can we call future method from another future method? Can we call a future method inside batch class, or can we call a batch class inside a batch class? And can we call future method from a trigger? So these scenarios, interviewer can ask you. Then the ways to schedule a batch class. That also one common question which I found in most of my interviews. Then the interviewer asked about database.stateful and database.stateless, because this is very basic thing you should be knowing when you're using batch classes. So yeah. Then flow scenario, he can ask, and the scenario that you have implemented recently. So at that point of time, I crossed one scenarios in my previous project where I have implemented sprint flow and record triggered flow for a business requirement. So I have explained that to him. Then he asked me about best practices of trigger. So you can also answer it like bulkify your code, avoid using DML or SQL inside for loop, and context specific handler method should be there, and one trigger per object. If multiple trigger per object, then you don't have control over the order of execution for the trigger. Always try to write logic less trigger. That's why you're supposed to write the handler class, because if we write the logic inside a trigger, then it decreases the code reusability and not be able to write test class properly. And for Apex class, the best practices would be to bulkify DML and use built-in limit methods. We should avoid nesting loop. We should avoid SQL queries and DML inside loop, and keep logic out of trigger. Avoid hard-coded ID and constants. Break method into smaller method, and then create relationship between object so that you can reduce the number of queries. Also, we should adhere to security guidelines to prevent excesses and SQL injection. So these best practices, what I told him. Then comes to governor limit. He asked me about governor limit. So what I answered was Salesforce is on a shared platform, which means that whole source resources is shared within customer client of Salesforce. So this requires Salesforce to enforce some limit on the resources used by each client or customer. So these rules are referred to as a governor limit. So we have 150 DML statement per transaction. We have 20 SOSL queries per transaction. Then we have 100 SQL queries per transaction. These are the synchronous limit. And if we talk about asynchronous, then we have 50 million record from get query locator. And we can have 200 SQL queries per transaction. And then he asked me about LWC lifecycle hook. So you can explain him to the lifecycle hooks of LWC, like constructor is there, connected callback, rendered callback, disconnected callback, and error callback. So constructor runs when the component is created, whereas connected callback runs when the component is added to the DOM. Rendered callback runs after the component is rendered, and disconnected callback runs when the component is removed from the DOM. Then error callback runs if there is any error during rendering. Then he asked me to write code for a few scenarios, and it was the first question was fetch accounts with no contacts. So this is not particular coding question. This is a simple SQL statement that he asked me to write. Then he asked me to write fetch opportunity with no contacts, and then he has given me a scenario that if we change email field on an account record, then after saving it, it should automatically reflect the same email on the contacts associated to that account. And the another question was whenever a user is deleting an account, then he should automation should be there that should prevent deletion of account if there is any contact associated to it. And if there is no contact, then he should be able to delete it. And another scenario he has given me was on creation of contact, send email to account owner associated to that contact. So he asked me to write a full email in form of Apex class. So that's all was my technical interview experience. Then HR scheduled my techno-managerial round, and it's obviously, as name suggests, it's a technology-based question as well will be there, and managerial question will be there. So he first asked me about tell me about yourself, which is very common question whenever you will be giving any interview. So the very first question an interviewer will ask will be the tell me about yourself. So keep an answer prepared with yourself for this very question. Then he asked me to tell the current project which I'm working on, so what it does. So I have explained him, and then he asked my roles and responsibility, my day-to-day work which I do in my current project, and then he asked me about the reason why I'm leaving current company and what excites me to join Accenture. Then he asked me about the scenario of which I found the most challenging in my 1 year experience that I have faced that time and how I overcome it. And how do you implement the bulkification of trigger? So that one question he asked. Then he asked me about the different error which you may encounter while working in Salesforce ecosystem. So like there is common error of SOQL 101 mixed TML error. So these error you may encounter and the ways how to solve them. So he asked me about that, and then he asked me the asynchronous Apex implementation that I have done in my project. So like and then he asked the last question was why should we hire you? So you should be answering this as well in a proper professional manner. Um, provide him your experience plus your strengths plus the expertise you will bring to the company and just be crisp, be clear, be confident, and that will help you. That's all about my interview experience. And if you're preparing for any Salesforce interview, I think this might help you. These questions are the very basic question that any interviewer can ask you. So very good luck for your interview. Yes, you can do it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions, then do comment in comment section. I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot.